We will talk about globalization and global governance in this lecture. Without globalization, there's no global governance. So, of course, globalization is the p-test of global governance. But okay, the brief introduction is why we have to conduct our lecture through YouTube instead of we can have a face-to-face lectures. The main reason is because of the outbreak of COVID-19. Then, of course, because we're very close to China, so when the COVID-19 broke out in China on January, then of course must we must suffer from the outbreak. Of course, fortunately, because Hong Kong people, they are that is precautions measures is so good. They're well prepared for the outbreak. So the number of infection is globally speaking not that high, just around more than 1,000, but less than 1,000. 1,300, I forgot the number, but globally speaking, that's not a huge number of people gets infected by this disease. But think about this. This disease is the epicenter is China. Then it's spread to the whole world. Of course, we don't know the exact stage for the outbreak of this COVID-19. But the most reliable source is that this COVID-19 broke out in China. The first case is around December last year. But within 4 months, this spread to the whole world. That's March this year. This disease spread to Europe and then spread to United States, and then it spread to the whole world, Latin America, all over the world suffer from this disease. Just 4 months. This disease, of course, its infection rate is quite high, but compared to other diseases like the Black Death, 黑死病, its infection rate is similar, but the death rate, Black Death, of course, is a very horrible disease. When the Black Death broke out in Europe and around the 14th century, 1/3 of the total population in Europe died because of that disease. But the epicenter of that disease is there's rumor that this disease also originated from China, but it takes more than a decade for this disease to spread to Europe from China. But COVID-19, just 4 months. Why COVID-19 can spread so quickly to different parts of the world? This is, of course, a result of globalization. And then, on the other hand, because this is a global disease, so can any country on the world handle this disease single-handedly? Of course, no. Even America, you can say the strongest country on the world, cannot handle this disease single-handedly. Otherwise, of course, United States, this government will be very strong. This government can, suppress this disease within its homeland. But then there will be some disease on other parts of the world, outbreak in other parts of the world, and then the outbreak in other parts of the world will affect again United States. Affect against United States. That is the second wave. So let's say if this country would like to totally suppress, totally evade COVID-19, it must help other countries, and then all countries on the world join together to fight against diseases. Otherwise, even though there's no more disease in that country anymore, but the second wave, the origin is imported from other places of the world. So so you see, COVID-19 is a very good example of globalization. Not an example, but very good example of the effect of globalization. And also, COVID-19 is a very good example of the importance of global governance. What is globalization? It's very simple. It's firstly is the fundamental shift and transformation in the spatial scale of human social organization that link distant communities and expands the reach of power relations across regions and continents. We can say this is a kind of contraction of the distance. Why? I give a good example. Last year, when I taught another course called China Foreign Policy, the last lesson, I conduct that last lesson in Japan through Facebook. Before the age of globalization, it's impossible. The communication technology cannot facilitate a long distance teaching. Now, of course, because of COVID-19, I have to be locked in Hong Kong. But with this teaching device, the YouTube, I can teach you in different parts of the world, even Antarctica. I can teach you in Antarctica. I can teach you in, say, North Pole or South Pole. Different parts of the world, very distance. That's why you can say there's a contraction of distance. And then there's a growing integration of an international capitalist system in the post-war period. In fact, this is a result of the growing integration of international capitalist system. Globalization comes with so-called the expansion of international capitalist system. The only countries in our this world which we usually consider haven't been globalized, haven't been affected by globalization, is North Korea. One of the main reasons is because North Korea is isolated from this international capitalist system. And then, so there's a saying that it's a process of time, place, compassion, literally a shrinking world in which the source of even very local development can trace to distance, condition, and decisions, just like the outbreak of COVID-19. The outbreak of COVID-19 in America can be traced back to the outbreak of COVID-19 30,000 kilometers away in China. So it also stretched social, political, economic activities across political frontiers. So the event and activity in one region of the world come to have significance for individuals and communities in distant regions. The meltdown of iceberg in the Arctic on the Hong Kong's weather, I think this is not a very good example. I mean, you not prefer with this example, but this is a very good example when this course first introduced 4 years ago. This nowadays, a very good example is 2 days. Last year we have so-called the anti-extradition bill movement. This event is a very local event, but it affects different parts of the world. And different parts of the world, people in different parts of the world consider that this event significant to them. Like Taiwan, of course, Taiwan is still close to us, but American. A lot of American politicians, they consider this event very significant to them. So they support Hong Kong protesters by voting for the legislation of the so-called Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Bill, not bill, Act. And of course, this is an intensification of global interconnectedness in almost every social existence. Before the age of globalization, people rarely travel around. Say my grandfather and my grandpa and my grandma, the first time for them to live, of course they come from China, but my grandpa and grandma, but they come from China. They came from China, but the first time they officially left China is in 1970s. when they visit. I don't know. It is politically speaking, not in the sense of political correctness. This is still a part of China. This is Taiwan. They went to Taiwan in 1970s. This is the first time they left the mainland Chinese the Chinese continent, the continental China. Then really the first time they visit the world, other parts of the world, is in 1980s. My grandpa and grandma visit Japan. Then my grandpa died very early in 1980s, and then he just visited one country throughout his life, but he died in the mid 1980s. Not long ago, my grandpa. But you guys, including me, last year, I visit, except Taiwan. Last year I visited 4 different countries on the world, in different continents, including Europe, including Asia. So that's why I have more chance to travel, and this is a very good example of intensification of global interconnectedness, because we have more chance to travel to different areas. But this also that's continuous growth of trade, and also this is a result of the quick spread of infectious disease like SARS or COVID-19. And there's a lot of globalization programs brought by globalization. I'll talk about them one by one later. Because it's globalization, and then there's an acceleration of the pace of global interaction and process. So that the evolution, because of the spread of news, and then what happened in the parts of the world will result in event on another parts of the world. First example, you may know if you take comparative democratization, Arab Spring. Why a number of Arabic countries suddenly democratized, suddenly overthrow their existing government? Is because of the spread of Facebook. Facebook play a very important role in the spread of this of the value of democracy. So a lot of people are motivated by this value, and in Europe, in Arabic countries, and then say go onto the streets to protest against the government, and then join efforts to overthrow their government. And also there's a synchronized collapse of stock markets. In the past, American stock markets did not affect Hong Kong markets very much. I mean, before 1980s. But later, we can see most of the time American stock market, when it collapsed, Hong Kong stock market collapsed at the same time. And then stock market in different parts of the world, they rise and collapse, rise and ups and downs, usually in a synchronized pattern. Of course, some rise more rapidly to a higher level, and some collapse more rapidly, or the pace of the rise and the pace of the up and down different. But the pace of ups and down are quite similar, but the scale of the ups and downs different. But the pace is similar. This is so-called synchronized effect in stock markets. For instance, why Hong Kong stock market collapsed last month is because there's a collapse in United States stock market. This is also a very good example of a local event where I come to have global consequence, and global event can have a serious local consequence. This is also one very good example. Okay, then I will talk about patterns of globalization. The first is economic globalization. That is, all economies have been absorbed into an interlocking global economy. All economy of the world unlock together, so that because of the free flow of financial capitals, as a Hong Konger like me, I'm free to invest in the U.S. market, and U.S. people can also freely invest in Hong Kong market. So there's free flow of capital. And That's why national government has less impact on this economy. Like the Hong Kong government, it has not its effect on its local economy is not that big. Say Hong Kong economy faced a depression. Why? Because firstly, of course, this is local event, the outbreak of COVID-19. But but of course, this COVID-19 originated in China. This is an event that Hong Kong government cannot control. And secondly, I don't think the Hong Kong economy can recover very soon. The main reason is because we American economy and China's economy face a depression simultaneously, and then even say the global economy face a depression simultaneously. So Hong Kong government can help Hong Kong recover very quickly, but its economy cannot bounce back to the to what happened last year, to bounce back to 1 year before, to the level we have seen 1 year ago, last year. Why? Because the main reason is because Hong Kong government cannot help China and the United States to rescue their economy. And then political globalization is the significance of national government declines, and while that of international organization increases. I'll talk about that later. I'll talk about global governance. This is a very good example of global governance. Cultural globalization is that flattens out cultural differences. This is called McDonaldization because different parts of the world we have McDonald's, and then our taste of eating is very similar. That is, we all on different parts of people from different parts of the world also like McDonald's. But McDonald's is not a very good example because we still, apart from eating McDonald's, this fast food or junk food, we also eat other types of food like Japanese food, sushi, like Chinese food. But our taste in watching, our cultural taste, taste of people from different parts of the world, the culture, the taste of culture is becoming increasingly similar. The taste, for instance, like nowadays we do not watch, we rarely watch local movie because we like to watch Hollywood movie. And an even better example is in the past, I mean in 1980s, 1970s, or even early 1990s. Each Hong Kong Division 1 soccer league, each match of Hong Kong Division 1 soccer league, the attendance must be more than 10,000 people. More than 10,000 people went to the Hong Kong Stadium or Mong Kong Stadium to watch Hong Kong Football League. But now, on average, less than 1,000 people attend or better say watch Hong Kong Football League. Well, better say less than 1,000 people attend the Hong Kong Football League on average for each game. Because why? Because we don't watch Hong Kong Football League anymore. We watch Premier League, English Premier League. Military globalization is there's a the growth of transnational terrorism and also the aspect of global arms trade. Because arms, we have some failed states. That means those states which is very poor and its government is very weak. They sell arms to different parts of the world. They can equip terrorists and also equip some guerrillas. So this is military globalization. Retreat of state. The importance of state nowadays, as I mentioned earlier, is not as important as 30 years ago, before the coming of the age of globalization. Why? Because firstly, political and economic activities are increasingly stretched across the globe. Because nowadays, activities like, for instance, like the production of Apple, the smartphone, The Apple designed this iPhone in California, and then the iPhone was, you can say, the different parts of iPhone was gathered in China, in Dongguan, in the factory in China. So you see, there's a stretch of economic activities. Even the production of iPhone, the different parts of the world take up different roles in producing iPhones. And there's a lot of international criminals and terrorists at work. So this is called deterrorization. That is, territory is not important. In the past, all production is happen in one part of the world. All economic activities happen in one part of the world, and even all the criminal groups, they just operate within a country. That's international criminal groups. Of course, there's still existence of international criminal groups, but they was not that popular. They was not that as common as nowadays, and problems spread over easily, like the spread of COVID-19. Boundary is not a really boundary, because in the past problem just exists within the boundary, but nowadays problems spread over to other parts of the world very easily, like the spread over of the COVID-19. So the distinction between domestic and the international, inside and outside the state, break down. So this is the deterioration, reduce the importance of state and sovereignty, because each state they have to tackle a lot of problems globally. So they transform some of their sovereignty to international organizations. Say in Europe, different European countries, they even though there's different sovereign states like Germany, like Italy, like Spain, like Portugal, but they use the same currency, that is euro. So these states, because they hand over their monetary, the sovereignty to handle their monetary policies, that is 货币政策, to European Central Bank. So this is so-called a shared exercise of power, public power and authority. In the past, the sovereign state can make all public decisions locally within their own states. But nowadays, they have to hand over the power to some international organization for making decisions. That's why we can say there's a decline of importance of sovereign state. And nowadays, not only sovereign state, but some international agencies, so NGOs, non-governmental organizations, are very important in management of common and global affairs. I give you a good example. In fact, the Internet IG is not decided, but the address of Internet IG is not IP is not decided by a government or even a so-called international organization formed by governments of different parts of the world, like United Nations, like World Trade Organizations. The regulation of IP address is regulated by a non-profit private organizations. This organization have 5 branches. Hong Kong one is regulated by an organization that the organization is headquartered in Brisbane, in Australia. This organization regulates the IP address of all internet users in Asian region. That's why there's a diffusion. This is also a very good example of diffusion of power. In the past, all decision or political powers are concentrated on states, but nowadays a lot of political powers has been reallocated to a variety of institutions, public and private. That's a diffusion of power. And nowadays, world system become multi-centric and multi-layers. In the past, all governance is a centric relations. That is, all power is concentrated in the central government, central sovereignty government. Nowadays, different parts of the world make different decisions, and the different decisions affect local issues very profoundly. Say why countries in different parts of the world are infected by COVID-19, and then they do not duly take some precautionary measures before the outbreak. One of the main reasons is because the WHO did not timely alert them that they have to take precautionary measures against the infection of COVID-19. So that's a very good example that decision made by the WHO is so important. It's even more important than the decision made by each sovereign state government. It's if the decision made by WHO is more important than the decision made by United States government. Uneven globalization. After the period of globalization, we can see the wealth of different parts of the world spread more unevenly than before. You can say in the past, before the Great Globalization, I mean, say 40 years ago, before 1980s, the richest 5% of total population gets around 10% of the total wealth. But now the richest 5% of total population gets more than 20% of the total wealth. So you can see that this is a result. You can see globalization lead to a widening of the wealth gap, the global income gap, and this is also a result of so-called the globalization of some parties. Then those parties favor the rich, and these parties are in fact promoted by some non-government organizations and even some profit-making organizations, that is so-called credit rating agencies. Those credit rating agencies will give some credit ratings. Say Hong Kong now is rating downgrade to AA-. In the past it's AAA Hong Kong. The downgrade of rating means will have two effects. First of all private agencies or private companies or private organizations is so-called it have to pay more interest. Have to pay more interest in borrowing money if the rating of its local government declines. Say nowadays Hong Kong Hong-Kong-based companies have to pay more interest because the Hong Kong, we can say, Hong Kong is not say, but this is the official name given by those rating agencies. That is, the Hong Kong sovereign's rating declines. So Hong-Kong-based company have to pay more interest when they borrow money. And secondly, the downgrade of rating also affects the interest of investor on whether to invest in this country or this region. So, like Hong Kong, because the rating of Hong Kong declines, so we can expect that a lot of investors will no longer invest in Hong Kong anymore. And there's pressure by this kind of rating agencies usually pressure the government to reduce taxation and regulation to attract global capital. Usually those countries with less regulation and taxation will have a high rating. But at the same time, because of less regulation, taxation, they can have less method to intervene into their national economy, and then can also cannot maintain the provision and regulation of social welfare, social services. So the poor get less welfare after the age of globalization. That's the reason. So the reason why, when witnessed a so-called widening of global wealth gap after the coming of the age of globalization. Okay, see you next time.